Hello everyone, Dwayne here. Welcome to the Radical of Math. And here in front of us is by far the best free response question of the 4 questions offered to students taking the Advanced Placement Precalculus exam for 2025. I'm going to put the PDF down below in the video so you can follow along. But in essence, this talks about a sinusoidal function. And so 3 parts. The first part involves this graph, and it asks you to determine coordinates for a possible function. So if I had an input of t, what is my height? And so the first thing to recognize is that above in the problem, there's a statement that says this motion occurs 200 times in 1 second. So we already know from that statement our period is 1 over 200. We already know that. The question tells us this. So, if we start here, what I would say that you need to do is to understand your y values at first, and then you can work out your x. So, this dashed line, which is also in the diagram, that is clearly a transition point between a positive value and negative value. So you already know that at G and K, the y coordinate is 0. And that means the x coordinate has to be very small. And it's asking for possible. So I can make the proposition that that is a possible coordinate. 3 over 800, 0, and all that. Thusly, we know, because this repeats, we know we can say this can be 0, 2, because you're moving this way. And we can say this right here because we know the y's. We know it's 2, 0, 2. Back up. And we can say this is 100, 2. We can make that claim. And that's because we know the period. And the question says 2 full cycles. So I didn't draw the other part, but it's 2 full cycles. So we know that those are possible coordinates. Now, if we try to put it in a function, and it gives you in question 2 this function. And it says, hey, can you find me some values for this function? Well, we simply need to know which goes where. So we know A is amplitude. Well, we know the amplitude is 2. It tells us this. 2 millimeters up, 2 millimeters down. So we know the amp is 2. We know the period is 2 pi over b. But we know what the period is. The period, because it told us in the question, this motion occurs 200 times in a second. That's period. We know this. Now, d is, does it shift up and down? No, it is very much anchored on the 0 line. And then you have a phase shift. And what you find out is that c is 1 over 800. There's a phase shift that you find. And so what you find out is b is 400 pi. Because we know what the period is when we clear everything out, it's 400 pi. So the function that you saw is 2 sine 400 pi t plus 1 over 800. That's the function. Very good trig question. Very good trig question. C. Refer to the graph of h in part A. The t-coordinate of g is t1. The t-coordinate of j is t2. On the interval, what is true? Okay. So let's draw this. So g, which we have given in the previous question, we're asserting that a coordinate of that could be satisfied. And then we come down to j. And we're saying that this coordinate is suitable. Note the t value is always moving. It's always moving. So on the interval, what is true? What is true about this? Well, we know it's negative because of the y values. So you can rule out A and B, throw them out. The question is it increasing or decreasing? It's clear it's decreasing. On this interval, describe the concavity of the graph of h. Determine whether the rate of change of h is increasing or decreasing. And so what you're finding out is this is actually concave up. Because this is actually, the inflection point's like right about there. And the reason is the rate of change is increasing. So as you take points here and here and here from that, you'll see the rate increasing. So, all in all, my feedback on question 3. The first thing is best question of the FRQs. By far, best question. This is a very thought-provoking question. This tests a lot of different things about sinusoidal functions. And this is the only question that I would consider properly appropriate to prepare a student for calculus. It's this question. The other thing I like about it is in this example, and it's the only one of pertinence, the fact that it talks about rate of change and concavity actually makes sense. It actually makes sense. You had to know your trig properties when it came to amplitude, period, and shifts. You had to know that to really understand this question. I also think this is the toughest question by far. Toughest question. So now that we've worked through it and all that, I'm going to say, in terms of quality of question, all that, I'm giving it an 8 out of 9. It's that good. Because when you get to calculus and you start handling trig functions and derivatives and stuff like that, you will need to know a fair bit of these properties and understandings intimately in order to be successful. So thanks everyone for watching the video. Like, follow, subscribe. And as always, take care of yourselves, take care of one another. God bless.